Hey guys, I have a very interesting video for you today. I hope that you will enjoy this video I'm about to make, and it's right up my alley. It has to do with science. I have like 2 science degrees, okay? One in psychology and one in anatomy and physiology to be a health practitioner here in Canada, which was essentially just it's like a pre-med that you have to do as a standard. Anyway, so I love science, okay? And I was watching, I think it was like a Facebook short the other day from this one guy, fairly well known in the steroid community. You might know him as like a steroid influencer. He's now a professional bodybuilder. I believe he got it last year. He's an older gentleman, but he made this video that steroid science. You know, there's a lot of debate whether it's actually a science or not, because, you know, there is limited research on a lot of these compounds that were done back in the day, but weren't necessarily tied to, you know, the bodybuilding and things. It was, back in the day, it was used for things like burn patients or AIDS patients or people recovering from surgery or even breast cancer, like Mastron. And a lot of these studies were done on rats and such, not actual humans. Which, you know, so there hasn't been adequate, actual, proper science done on, like studies done, medical studies on bodybuilders and strength athletes and sports athletes who are taking steroids. Long-term studies, whether it be harm or benefit, right? There really hasn't been. It's one of those things where, and this was the other whole point that he was making, that a lot of it comes down to the personal experience and very anecdotal, like what people have just reported over the years, what have worked, what hasn't worked. And part of that is kind of like bro science, but part of that is actual like in the community, in the bodybuilding community, people sharing what worked and what hasn't. And then, you know, I guess people who just straight up die is kind of like, you know, see, okay, don't do that. Or like, you know, people who have health issues as a report to doing too much, you know, it's like, okay, maybe that's not a good thing to do, and so on and so forth, right? So you get the picture of what I'm going, and that's why a lot of people would claim that what we know in the anabolic community isn't actually science, it's more anecdotal. But what Paul argued, and what I will in my own way here, is that it actually is a science. That is actually what the foundation of science is. The foundation of the scientific method is based on anecdotal evidence and evidence of experience, okay? And very much so. At least that's where it starts. You know, studies are built off those types of things. And for somebody to to make a hypothesis or to theorize on something, you know, or to deduce something in advance without actually having the direct empirical evidence, that's what, you know, all science starts from, right? Like Isaac Newton, like something just hitting an apple on his head to tree, and then that's how he started with like gravity and forces and things like that. And as well, I believe it was Descartes or somebody who was watching, he was in bed half asleep and he was watching these flies buzzing around his room, and he was able to do, as a result, create Cartesian, you know, mathematics, which was essentially calculus, okay? Like very advanced things that has to do with XYZ coordinate systems. So to give you the idea, like what is anecdotal or based on personal experience or what people can theorize about, actually, that's the starting point. But here's also the other thing, which is bodybuilding science, like over the years, is just an accumulation of thousands of essential case studies. Now, the case studies weren't necessarily done through proper means like universities and such, but they're done by, I believe, what you could consider qualified individuals who might have scientific backgrounds. For example, coaches, right? Who you know, their exercise science, their nutrition science based, and a lot of the evidence that they're building this off is empirical evidence, medical evidence, such as blood work is going to be the main one I'm going to say here, but there's a whole bunch of others. But then also there's like what works and what doesn't work, correct? And then based on years and years, like some of these guys have been in the game now 30 plus years, either doing it or, had thousands of clients doing it, they realize what works, what doesn't work, what creates negative side effects, etc., etc. So each one of their clients is an essential case study, which is a very important thing in science. That's a very important in science. It's a type of experimentation, right? In science, there's types of experimentations where you can just sit on a park bench and just take note of people who are just walking by, whether they're looking up or looking down, type of thing, and then based on gender and age and things, you could deduce a whole bunch of things and create charts and trends and whatever else. I'm just giving you an example. That's what kind of science, what kind of experiment would that be? I don't know, like a real world type of experimentation type of thing where you're just observing, right? Well, in the same sense, you could observe trends over time based on clients, based on your own personal experience. Any one of you, including myself, doing steroids knows what works and what doesn't work. That's a mini experiment, right? And if you have the scientific kind of method in your mind, realizing, weighing things out and measuring results and such, like when I took nandrolone, my strength went up 60 pounds on my bench press, as opposed to when I added Masteron, it only went up 20 pounds. Okay, well, based on that personal experiment, that nandrolone, and it has better strength qualities. You came to that conclusion in your own mini experiment, right? Well, have that times 1,000 people over thousands of people over 30 years finding the exact same results and reporting the exact same results. There's a trend there, right? And the other thing I want to mention, and this isn't really science, but it kind of is like in law, that people go to jail based on what somebody says, based on what people report, right? That isn't science-based. Like somebody reports that they saw something, they saw this individual do this, you know what I mean? That's the evidence in the court, right? There's evidence. Where then people go to jail over those types of things. So, testimonies, right? So what we have is a bunch of testimony, and then as a result, and I believe this is happening now, that we have actual scientists taking this testimony, taking 30 plus years of scientific people reporting their scientific experiments and coaches and such, and actually then bringing it into a framework which is absolutely scientific. And I believe we're seeing more and more and more of that. And hopefully somebody like Donald Trump or I saw you just made some psychedelics legal. Hopefully he can bring some PEDs into legal way as well. Obviously, if it's maybe supervised, that would be best. Not just handing it out to just anybody. But that's what I would like to see, and then actually more studies done, because I believe there's ones that are safe, and maybe even you could develop ones that are even safer. Like if it actually was focused on in the scientific community, there's a lot more out there that are waiting to be discovered, I believe, as well. That have that base structure of testosterone or DHT or even NOR19. Things could be tweaked and such, and then experiments could be done, and maybe there's one that's a lot safer and relatively potent enough, that isn't totally benign when it comes down to what the effects it has. And then that would be nice, wouldn't it? Or at least work with what we have already, work with what we have in things like Primabol and such, and testosterone, nandrolone would be another one, or Anavar, I think are things that should be more studied, because those are ones that are quoted as relatively, quote, safe, right? That'd be nice, because maybe something like Primabol, upon further research, actually affects kidneys or something more than expected. So that'd be nice, at least for the negative side effects, but as well positive ones, and more just as it applies to sports and well-being and such, because I believe a lot of these compounds could add to better quality of life for a lot of individuals. So I'll leave it there. What's your thought? But again, I guess I got to conclude that, in essence, that is the scientific method. Based on theories and hypothesis, putting it to a test, whatever way that is, and then observing, getting results, getting some kind of data, and then drawing conclusions based on the data. And in this bodybuilding realm of things, that's exactly what's going on. So at the very least, there's a scientific method, even though it's not done through proper, necessarily, quote, channels of universities and studies being done. So what are your thoughts on that video? It's actually something, like I said, I'm don't quote myself as being a scientist, but I have a science background in a lot of ways, and so I love that approach, and that's what I'm trying to do on my channel as well with other videos I'm making. Is coming out from a evidence-based, my own scientific base and my own experiment. So I'm experimenting on myself with compounds and reporting what's working and reporting, drawing conclusions. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked this video. Peace.